Hello, fellow world. 7K Vex here once again. It's been quite a while since I've been on. I wanted to bring up a topic that I am quite nervous about. Back in 2008, I started writing my first book. I had a weird dream, and I wrote a book based off of it. I finished it in 2009. I even have the folder from back then and the manuscript. And I got the year on there. I think somewhere up here I do have a page up in here that says 2009, and that was my first book. I even have some trailers for it, some music that I had made for it, and I have it on my YouTube, and I have it in this as well. These are the first CDs that I ever made. I made them in chronological order. Started in about 2006, continued on. That's the one for my first book right there. And then I wound up writing a second book, and I have those right here. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. The content of that story is quite controversial nowadays. If you look on the news today, apparently anybody who speaks ill about the election, which I don't care, that's not my business, they're considered a terrorist. I saw that on news. Homeland Security announced it. Anyone who speaks ill about doesn't want to abide by specific COVID measures, COVID mandates, COVID-19, considered a terrorist. This is not about COVID-19, but with that in play, there's been a lot of sensitive people lately to the topic I'm about to discuss. In 2005, I believe, I had a dream, and it freaked me out. I was like 12 years old. That dream came up again in severe detail when I was like 17, 2009. I swore I would never write another book after I finished my first one. I wound up having this dream, and I had to write it. I had to write it down. And there were like a lot of riots. Stuff was on fire. There was some sort of disease going on, and like somebody was tugging somebody else to try and get him out of the way. Like, no, we gotta go. And I wrote this into a long story. I even have the CDs for it. I also have trailers that I had made on my YouTube. And music that I made for it that's on SoundCloud as well. I can share links if anybody is interested or doesn't believe me, because there's been a huge issue with people seeming to think that I'm on some sort of bandwagon, some sort of maybe Republican Party agenda thing, and that's not my goal at all. I am not Republican. I am not Democrat. That is not my thing, because both parties are very full of shit. The topic of this is very nerve-wracking, because in the story there is a virus. I originally wound up wanting to use the common cold. I changed it to HIV, AIDS, and I wrote that into this story, and that's what I printed. That was in 2009. Over the years, I changed it in, I think, 2012 or 2011 to the common cold. And I have that on USBs. I have that on digital files, hard copies of it. I have a CD with the original and the new copies, because I've changed a lot over the years. And all I have is a printed one to read off of, but that's what I'm going to start with. Basically, this vaccine comes out for this disease, and the character winds up being forced to get it in order to keep her job. I have it right there. I don't want to have to do this, he said. I couldn't believe that they were considering firing me over a stupid injection. You are one of my best, Hal, my boss informed. I've been working here for over 2 years, Mark. You can't tell me that I will lose my job if I don't get this vaccine. I have it right there. It becomes a company policy. It isn't my decision, it is the company. They want everyone to be vaccinated. You know that every major corporation is doing it. It's the simple thing to do. It's the right thing to do. They want everyone to be vaccinated. She winds up telling him, to satisfy him. She tells him, yeah, I'm probably going to get it. When she gets home, she runs into her friend that's waiting for her and finds a note on her door. Apparently he found it and pulls it off and tells her that they want to kick you out. What? I screamed, reading further. They said that you have to get the vaccine by next Sunday or you're out. They checked your medical record and you don't have it yet. Right there. And she says, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. And it speaks more and more about it. Eventually, she winds up going to try and get it, and her foster brother comes and tells her, no, you can't get it. No, you can't get it. There's something wrong with it. And I wrote this all down with it. There's a lot of controversy over it. The society essentially turns into a very controlled, totalitarian, monitored type system. People destroy the earth to get people kind of centralized, localized, and then afterwards the earth kind of starts destroying itself. It doesn't want to take it anymore, and people have to power's out. They can't use the old system. None of that stuff's working anymore, so they have to have a new system, and it's kind of like an automated AI, very smart system using smart technology that they've already had, but it's like on fucking steroids. And this thing essentially kind of wants to be a god and play God. And when these people get put into this facility in order to keep them safe, they have to get these credentials in order to be put in the system. And it's a very invasive way of doing it. I won't speak about what it is, but it's not good, and it changes the way that humans act. It changes the way that they perform. And there's 3 types of different vaccinations for this, and they all start affecting people differently. And then when they get put into having to be forced to get the credentials and all of that, that's when it kicks in. And there's one for the wealthy, for the elite, the scientists of the world, all that kind of stuff. There's one for the military, and for the medical and all that kind of like civil servants. And there's one for the poor, and each one has a different effect on those individuals. And the middle class kind of becomes very subservient. The bottom class, subservient as well, but almost zombified, and essentially most all killed off. And it's people start to get hunted down in order to be put into this situation, and a lot of them are doing it anyway because they don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have clean air. There's no way to even survive in the conditions, and it gets pretty bad. But I don't have that part printed out for that. Basically, the only reason why I'm nervous about this is because I had seen on the news the talk of terrorism, of anybody that has an issue with that. And even though the original copy is AIDS, it wound up getting changed into the common cold, a really bad one, and they can't make a cure for it. But it's Anyway, the thing is, it's essentially the same thing. It doesn't, that being said, it's close enough. And when I've asked a lot of fellow writers on writers groups and a lot of other friends, it's been such a touchy subject that you can't even mention it, even before the statements of terrorism. I don't know what to do with this kind of situation. This is something I've been working on for 12 years. It is 2021. I started this in 2009. I fell into a really dark area of my life, and I stopped writing because I had a gut feeling. My parents had even told me that maybe one day after when I started writing this, I was reading 1984. I had just read 1984. We had just studied McCarthyism in school. We were being forced to take the HPV shot. It was 2009. We had to have it in order to go to school. Swine flu was around, and it was affecting a lot of people, H1N1. The economy just crashed, collapsed. We were losing everything, and people weren't writing and I was wondering whether or not it would happen. So I was writing about things like this back then, and I was nervous. Around 2011, 2012, I started talking to my family about it, and they were wondering if we ever turned into a society that was McCarthyistic ever again, that this kind of content could be considered offensive or terroristic. And the further we got into cancel culture and censorship, and now this whole issue with obstructing COVID mandates, this is a rough topic, and I have had a hard time discussing this with anyone. Everybody's essentially telling me to abandon this project, and it's something that I'm not willing to do right now. And I've had some people say, oh, maybe it's prophetic. I'm not here to say that. I know some people that think that I'm jumping on a bandwagon, but I have a lot of evidence, a lot of proof that I am not. I have a website. It's been shut down this year, though. It was working for the last 10 years, 11 years, since 2009 when I started it. I could put links up for it, but it'll just say that it's oops. The link is broken. It doesn't work anymore. But it had the premise for the story on it, and it was essentially the same thing. I have trailers for it on YouTube that I can link here, that you can see that this is clearly not a bandwagon that is recent. This is something I wrote about a very long time ago, and people have a problem with it, and I want to know how people feel. I want to know how the world actually feels about this, because what kind of world are we living in? What kind of society are we living in where somebody can't speak about this? Somebody can't write about this without it being burned or being considered terrorism. I've been afraid of that for years, and that's part of why I gave up. I fell into a dark place, and I stopped because I was scared that maybe I'd be a martyr, maybe I'd be a terrorist. I don't know what to do here, and this is something that I'm curious what everybody else thinks. I even have a picture here that I drew a long time ago. I didn't sign it, so it doesn't have any proof. It's got the name, and I signed it and then erased it because it was in a bad spot, so you can kind of see it scribbled there and erased. But it's a very crappy picture. It's anime. It's awful. I have others. I don't feel like bringing them out right now because it's a lot of information. I was curious what other people think about this topic. Is this something I should do? Is this something that I should never do? Is this too touchy? Is this too controversial? Is this should I be burned at the stake? Am I crazy? Is it prophetic? Is it something that I should leave well enough alone? Would it be considered spreading disinformation? Even though that's not what it's about. It's not about COVID. It wasn't about COVID. I'm nervous because this is a lot. of content for me to throw away. There's no reason for me to feel the need to have to toss all of this just because society says it's not okay to talk about. I know it's not COVID, but what does everybody think? If you want to leave your answer in the comments, that would be great to hear. I hope everybody has a great day, and you hang in there, and you make your own choices, and get the politics out of all this crap, because it's clearly not, it's not helping if you have no free press and you can't even talk about publishing a story similar to this because it's considered offensive. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope you guys have a great day.